Welcome back to Whence, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. I'm your host, Brother Robert Johnson. This is episode 165. This week we have a very special guest, the first female guest we've ever had on the show. Very happy to have her on the show. Her name is Michala, and she is the woman behind themasonslady.com, a blog which is just what it sounds like. It's a blog for the Masons Lady and a resource even for Freemasons, believe it or not. I hope you guys enjoy the interview. We're going to get right into it, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. All right, everybody. Today I am joined by Michala from themasonslady.com, and I'm really excited to have her on the show. She's our first female guest ever, and I thought there would be no other person to talk to break that barrier on the show than to talk with her first. So, Michala, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for anybody who's listening out there, Michala started themasonslady.com, and it was a WordPress blog, and it's a fantastic resource that I kind of fell into a few times while searching the web over some things. And Brother Nick Johnson from the Millennial Freemason had nothing but awesome things to say, and he said, she's totally awesome. You got to talk to her. So I'm just really excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So for anybody that wants to know, a Mason's Lady, we hear it done all the time. You see these little heart pins that say Mason's Lady. I'll just open it up to you. What is a Mason's Lady?
Well, I think that a Mason's Lady is really, any woman in a Mason's life that supports what he does with Masonry. It can be your mom, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend, any woman that is interested in supporting you and being active in the lodge in any way that she can.
Yeah, that's probably the best way I would put it as well. It's kind of interesting that you mentioned moms and grandmas or whoever it's going to be because, again, it's not always wives or our girlfriends. I guess I would never really thought about my mom as a Mason's Lady, but I guess she is in a way.
Yeah, you got to get your support where you can.
Indeed. So let me ask you, when did you start the Mason's Lady blog?
I started the Mason's Lady at our Grand Lodge this year, actually. Nebraska's Grand Lodge is in late January, early February.
Okay.
So this was my first big Masonic event that I had been to. I didn't really know what to expect, and, I kind of tried to Google some things and couldn't really figure out what was going on, and the schedule that they gave for the ladies was kind of vague.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you guys do at your Grand Lodges, but we always have the hospitality suite put on by the shrine. Okay. And in addition to that, if anyone reads my blog, I'm a big Scotch drinker. And so we have a Scotch club within the hospitality suite. I had been, of course, sampling all of the Scotches, and, it's probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I decided I should probably head back home because, Masonic breakfast starts, bright and early at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Sure.
And I'm laying in my hotel room, and I think to myself, it would really be great if someone had prepared me for this. If there was some sort of resource that was out there that told me the things that I needed to pack, that I need to know. Dinner is black tie with jewels. Well, I thought to myself, I don't have any rubies. I had no idea what that meant. And so I decided at 3 o'clock in the morning, after probably one too many glasses of Scotch, that I wanted to create that resource for women that did not currently exist, so that they had what I wish I had when I first started dating my Mason.
That's awesome. So have you tried Old Master's Scotch?
I have not. I am a Glenmorangie kind of girl.
Okay.
We've got some Tomatin in the house right now that we're finishing up, and I'm a fan.
That's cool. So I have to ask, your program for Grand Lodge sounds pretty interesting. Ours is essentially the ladies go down, they get a hospitality suite, and then they get to go, they bus them to like a mall in Springfield, Illinois. And from what I understand, I guess it's okay, but it's not exactly the most fun thing to do. And I think that's one of the reasons my wife skips out every year. She's like, I'm not really into shopping.
We have a ladies' luncheon where someone prominent comes and speaks, and, everyone is invited to bring a toy donation for a charity, but it's not nearly as structured, as involved as the men, and usually we only have, half of a day of programming as opposed to a whole day.
Sure.
I was, however, I had to check with my Grand Lodge that I could come, but we have a Masonic education breakfast at Grand Lodge every year.
Okay.
And this year was on the Morgan affair.
Ah.
And I asked Travis about that a little bit, and he kind of explained it to me. And I was like, man, I really want to go to that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So I emailed Grand Lodge. I was like, hey, can I come to this? Because it's before they open Lodge during Grand Lodge, and they said, sure, you can come. And I got up at 8 o'clock in the morning after a hard night, and I was the only woman in, a room full of hundreds of men, and it didn't matter. I learned a great deal.
The Morgan affair is pretty interesting. We started another podcast recently, and it's called the Masonic Radio Theater, and it's basically a 1930s, 40s style drama show, and it has the old kind of record hissing in the background, and we stitched together audio from a ton of different sources from around the country, Masons ladies, who basically read our script, and then we stitched it all together and we produced like a 1930s style detective noir type deal about the Morgan affair. It was a pretty fun thing. We just released it. It's gotten some pretty good reviews. If you're ever interested in doing a part for us, that would be awesome.
That sounds like that'd be very cool. So a little bit like Masonic Prairie Home Companion going on?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So when you first started the Masons Lady, did you find that you had a lot of support with it? Have you put it out there much? I know a lot of people know about it. Is that primarily through social media? Did it take off like crazy?
I was really kind of surprised. I thought, I'll make this blog, and maybe 3 people will read it, and that's okay. That's 3 people that learned about it. That's fine.
Right. If one person learned something, it was worth it, right?
Right, exactly. When I first started on WordPress, I did pretty well. I had a couple days where I would get, a couple hundred hits, and I was like, yeah, that's really awesome. Mm-hmm. And then I posted my first article about one of the women that belonged to a regular masculine Masonic lodge.
Yeah.
Which happened, most of those happened, before 1717 when the formation of the United Grand Lodge of England happened. But I'm actually very active on the Freemasonry subreddit on Reddit, and I took that blog post and I posted it up online, and the next day, I found out that someone had hacked my account. I couldn't get into it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. I just kind of took it in stride, and I started up again. I was like, all right, this time I'm gonna buy, a .com, and I want to, make sure I get all the security in there.
Yeah.
I started posting more and more. I posted one about Scotch, put that up on Reddit, and that one just, I would say that's probably really the turning point of my blog. I got probably about 2,000 hits that day.
Holy cow.
And since then, ever since that happened, it's just really taken off.
That's cool, though. I mean, I was posting things every once in a while on our Facebook page for Whence Came You, and I'd get a post or, a share here, there, likes, or what. The one time I post a picture of the bottle of Old Master's Scotch and a shot glass I had in my office, I swear it was like 300-400 likes, like 20 shares. It was wild. So the conclusion anybody listening should have is Masonry and Scotch go together somehow.
Definitely.
All right, so let me ask you about your membership in any Masonic fraternities.
Well, I am a member of a chapter of Eastern Star here. I'm not quite as active as I'd like to be, but it's kind of how it goes.
Yep.
I am a advisor for our DMLA chapter here in Omaha, and I recently signed a petition for Daughters of the Nile. Travis joined the shrine about a week ago because we had brought a friend to a friendship dinner, which is what they call their membership dinners here. Okay. And they offered a half-off dues for the shrine. That's fine. Well, I don't know if, backing up a little bit, I don't know if you're a member of the shrine or anything.
I'm not.
Oh, you're not. Okay. So at our shrine center, we have this great bar, and it's cheap, and they pour real heavy, and the ladies there are just awesome, and
the Shriners do pour heavy. I know that.
Yeah. So while the boys were in this friendship dinner, I was having a drink because I've been to a few of them before, and they're all kind of the same. And I decided to finish my drink up in the dinner. They call the guys out to be fezzed, so I fezzed Travis. And right after I fez him, they hand me a petition for Daughters of the Nile. Like, immediately.
Half off dues and get your ladies in the Daughters of the Nile. That's hilarious. Nick, I know he's going to be listening. You got to wait until they offer that half off before you can sign. I'm telling you, buddy. That's awesome. Nick is also, we should mention, you've heard Michala mention Travis. Travis is her fiance, if you haven't put that together yet. And what's funny is, I think, well, he's one of the moderators on Reddit, the subreddit for Freemasonry, and you're on there quite a bit as well.
We have a lot of behind the scenes talk on the Freemasonry subreddit. I tend to post a lot of I wouldn't even say controversial things, but
it's not controversial to you or to people like Nick, but there are some guys out there where a lady voicing an opinion on Masonry at all is considered controversial.
Right. I post a lot of things that people have very strong opinions about, and so Nick and I have had a few. How do I deal with this person? And, do you think this is too much? That kind of stuff. Chats.
So what's the future for the Mason's Lady? What are your hopes for that in the future, and where do you plan on taking it? Because I think it is a phenomenal website and a great resource. In fact, anybody listening, not only will I have the link, the Mason's Lady, in the show notes, there'll be a link permanently embedded on the right-hand side where all the links are for blogs by Masons. We're going to put up a little tile link there to the Mason's Lady also. Where do you want Mason's Lady to go in the future? What's the next step?
I'm actually in the process of a lot of that right now. Right now, just kind of minimal things. I'm working on getting a logo created. I want to, update the look of the website so it's a little bit easier to navigate.
Sure.
But bigger than that, I got invited recently to speak at our Grand Lodge's first annual leadership conference. And I spoke there about the history of women in Masonry. And, I got in contact with a number of people, including Dean Albin from the National Headquarters of Scottish Rite.
Yeah, he runs the Freemason Network, or he's one of the moderators.
I guess they have a podcast that they will be restarting, and he invited me to come speak there as well.
Very cool.
And in addition to that, the Grand Master of Nebraska asked me to write literature to hand out to the women of new Masons and to men that are petitioning to become Masons.
Great.
There's some information out there right now that they have, but it's kind of old and outdated.
It is. And I just witnessed this firsthand. This last, maybe a month and a half ago, I had my Grand Lodge send us some new pamphlets to pass out. We were at an air show and we had a booth. And one of the pamphlets we had, it was a pamphlet geared for women whose husbands or boyfriends were in the fraternity. And I said, wow, this is the greatest cool thing ever, because finally we have a pamphlet for the ladies. And what I found out that day was more ladies took those pamphlets than guys took the other pamphlets.
I believe it.
And so then I'm going through our locker at the lodge, and I'm finding old pamphlets, and I'm like, oh, wow, it's the same thing, and this was from 1970s. And then I found the ladies one that I thought was new. No, it's just a reprint from one that was in the 70s. So that stuff does need to be updated, and it would be really cool that you're going to be updating some of that material.
Yeah, I hope to have it, theoretically, fingers crossed, done by the end of the year.
Sure.
And I'll be passing that along to my Grand Lodge, and I might also contact some other Grand Lodges as well and see if they're interested in it.
You definitely should, because there are a lot of the Grand Lodges, and I don't want to say Grand Lodges are out of touch. They just have so much on their plate. They can't focus. It is still a philanthropic organization, and they have other things they're focusing on, and I guess the ladies' pamphlet might not be on the right on the main course dinner plate there. But I'm excited to know that you're potentially really going to be one of the big voices of the female side of Masonry. I think this is excellent.
Well, I hope to be. That's one of my goals. I feel that, often the ladies that are involved in Masonry are, I don't want to say forgotten, but I think that perhaps the extent of their involvement is not truly realized.
True. You have to realize at every past master's dinner or every installation that we go to, we try to remember to, and I say try to remember because we're guys, we get dumb and we forget, but literally, it's the old saying, behind every great man is a greater woman.
Right.
She's got to put up with this guy And she's there for all the support, and she's giving him the ideas. I don't know where I'd be without my wife pushing me along and helping me out with lectures and all these things. And the lady's involvement is huge. So I know you mentioned that you were going to be possibly on the Scottish Rite podcast, which is called The Life Masonic. Is that the same one that you're talking about?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great podcast. We've got I host another website called the Masonic Podcast Network, and essentially what it is, it's like Tom Acousti has a great website. I think it's Ashes to Ashlers. And so this is basically just a one-stop shop for a link to all the great Masonic podcasts that we have. And the Life Masonic is another really great one. Do you know when you might be going on that program?
I do not yet. I contacted Dean a while ago, and I haven't heard back from him yet, but I'm sure he's quite busy.
Oh, yeah. Those guys, Scottish Rite guys down in the Southern Jurisdiction, they are just always busy. It takes a while for me to hear back from any of those guys, if I hear back from them at all sometimes.
Yeah. So when I first started the blog, as I said originally, I just wanted to have it to be a guide for a woman that was in the same position as myself.
Sure.
Who didn't have the resources available to know, not only on a, Masonry 101 level, but also, what exactly happens at a business meeting, the kind of things that, the shrine does specifically, stuff like that. The more and more I went into this topic, the more I kind of branched out a little bit. I've talked about the different star points from Eastern Star and their backstories that not everyone knows. I've talked about, as I mentioned before, the women that have became Masons before the formation of the Grand Lodge in New England.
Sure.
Oh, excuse me, not England, but England.
Right.
But then in addition to that, I've also kind of added on things that young Masons might not know, such as, as I mentioned before, Scotch, but I've also done a couple articles on how to take care of dress clothes, stuff like how to tie a tie.
Yeah, that's cool.
And doing stuff like that in the future, how to eat at a 3 or 4 course meal that you might have at Grand Lodge.
That's really cool.
That kind of stuff.
That's really neat. It's almost like if you're a Mason and you're listening to the show, you know that your lady is coaching you on those things anyway. In the event your lady isn't available, you have a resource. That's going to be really cool. I can't wait for you to get those up and getting all that kind of organized.
Yeah, and I actually stole it from someone on Reddit. The tagline for the Masons Lady is exploring the social dynamics of Freemasonry.
That works.
And that's really what I'm interested in. I'm interested in, the things that we need to know and how to, the things that we need to know how to do, the ways that we need to interact with each other. Not only that, but the ways that we do currently interact with each other. I've gone over stuff that people might not think about, like gender roles that exist and are perpetuated throughout Masonry.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, that kind of stuff can get very interesting. You get a lot of guys who might be very living in that kind of super mega man's ego world,
Yeah, I mean, without going too much into that, I think that Masonry really had its last big boom in the 50s and 60s, and it kind of tends to uphold those ideals and gender roles, but I don't think that has to be a bad thing. The nights that Travis goes to Lodge, that's my glass of wine, steak, and Mad Men nights.
Yeah. I think my wife thinks the same thing. So there's something to be said. Men have the social clubs, these fraternal clubs. We have Masonry and things. But Masonry in itself is something that, of course, has died down in membership. But across the board, I think clubs in general have died down in membership. There was a time when guys went to their Masonic meetings and the ladies went to... I'll use an example. I have a friend of mine who goes and plays bridge once a week, and she's like 30. She just goes out and she plays bridge. That's her thing. And but her husband goes over to the neighbor's house, and they have homebrew parties, and she goes out and does bridge. So there's that whole social dynamic. My grandparents have pictures all over their house of when they would go to dinner clubs. They'd have a photo at the dinner club or whatever it was. We just don't do things like that anymore. I think that's a mistake. I think the social clubs and a lot of the things you're exploring, you talked about the social dynamic. Those are important things to talk about today. I think they have a place if the people are willing to take a chance and go there and see how much fun they'll have.
I agree, and I really think that's going to be a real challenge to get the kids that are 16, 18, 19 right now to be involved in Masonry.
Yeah.
Because why should I go to lodge when I can go to this tiled lodge that's out of Canada online instead?
Yeah. Michala, I gotta thank you for coming on the show today and just hanging out and giving us your opinion and letting us know about the site. And I'm really excited for what's coming next for your website. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, how about that? Wasn't she amazing? She was really funny to talk to, both before the interview and after the interview. We talked for a little while, and she is just a great resource for Masons and Masons ladies everywhere. She's really cool. So again, please visit her website, www.themasonslady.com. You can find a link to her site on mine if you go to wcypodcast.com and you slide down all the way until you see the Blogs by Masons links, and you'll see the little tile logo with the heart on it that says Masons Lady. We're going to ask you to support the show via PayPal or the apps, however you want to do that. Check out the Support the Show tab on wcypodcast.com. We're foregoing the usual Famous Freemason for this week. I'm a little bit pressed for time. I do have Grand Lodge sessions this week, so this episode I had to get the interview done. Just right before I left for the sessions and record the post-production afterwards. So I kind of put this all together in 2 days. That's it for this week. Again, please check out themasonslady.com, wcypodcast.com, the Midnight Freemasons, the Masonic Roundtable live on YouTube and Google Hangouts at 9 Central every Tuesday. Check out the Masonic Podcast Network and stay tuned for the next episode of the Masonic Radio Theater, probably coming toward the end of October. All right, everybody, have a great week. Stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson.